Welcome everyone to the first Tuesday Newsday after the live stream, opening up strong with a GLEX banner. Hey Sinzar.
How's it going?
Good, good. We're all very happy for GLEX banners. That's usually what carries the game nowadays, right?
Yes, indeed, and it is Tsukiko who I'm hyped about because I really liked her 7-star.
Same, same. I loved her 7-star. I tried very hard to pull for her. I did not get her nor Kaito. So that was quite disappointing. In fact, I think I got the first copy of her just as she was no good anymore.
Oof.
But I love her design. I love her design. I love both her and Kaito's design, honestly. And her sprite is amazing. I want to say I really like it. I mean, I haven't seen the animations yet, but from what I see here, it looks really good. And the little fox thing spirit, kind of sitting on her arm, very cool.
It is indeed.
So is she
Pretty
another
good.
SLB unit? I guess is the first question everyone's wondering.
She is not. She is true Brave Shift.
Woo! Thank the Lord. Maybe Olive was. I mean, don't get me wrong. I fucking love Olive. Like I love Olive as a unit. But maybe they came to their senses. So she's a true Brave Shift, and her Brave Shift sprite is even more crazy. So that's
It,
pretty cool.
looks pretty good. She's got like little foxtails behind her and all.
Right. So I think the big thing here is that with Tsuki, we are getting the very first GLEX evoker, and I don't count Diverty as a GLEX. So she
Well,
is a cow evoker, right?
well, technically speaking, Morgana was the first in the 7-star era, but she is the first NeoVision's global exclusive evoker. Yes.
I guess that's depressingly true. I actually like Morgana. I'm a bit ashamed that I didn't think of Morgana myself, but I mean she was never good, I
She
guess.
was not ever.
Yeah, so that's why I don't count her in. Okay, listen. Like Esther in chat is saying, like, or Tijia is saying in chat, Tsuki sprite is average. Fuck you, guy. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, like, have you seen the Brave Shift sprite? It looks amazing.
That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the whole like she almost looks like a some type of goddess. Like it's really cool. Um, so evoker, right? Isn't that really dangerous for cow?
Well, what do you mean dangerous by? Explain.
Well, evoke damage is famously, for instance, not affected by killers to begin with. And one thing that I'm, of course, scared about is that in order then to make evoke damage good, it needs to be really strong. It needs to be basically as strong as if you have max killers geared, right? Or that's at least how evokers so far have worked when they've been released.
Yes.
So I guess I'm a bit afraid that this might be a dangerous precedent where we might get a unit that's so strong but won't need killer gearing. Maybe. Although, I guess, it depends on how well she gears for the evoke stuff, because that's not trivial to gear for either, I guess.
Yeah. So it's not so much the fact that you don't have to gear for killers. You're just gearing for a different kind of killer. So instead of gearing for like human killer, you're gearing for evocation damage, which is you're still gearing for it. It still requires stuff. In the past it required kind of more obscure STMRs. These days it's a lot more common. But the big perk here is that while you need 12 different sets of killer gear for normal units, evokers use one set for everything. So it's actually arguably cheaper to gear an evoker as opposed to collecting 12 different killer sets for another unit.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on how you see it. So cheaper in the way that it's less gear and it's also not shared. So like your olive won't be needing this gear. Like you're not making olive weaker by making Tsuki stronger. On the other hand, evoker gear is usually a bit harder to come by because it requires some very specific STMRs and TMRs. Like, for instance, the Unalesca STMR that we talked about last week, as well as Luna Freya's STMR. Those are kind of must-haves. I'm going to guess that's going to be true for this unit as well.
It depends on her overall passes, but yeah, it's very likely that things like Unalesca STMR, which is like one of the best evoker gears in the game, will probably see use in her best in slot.
Yeah, but I'm just worried. I'm just worried because if she's too easy to gear, this might be a very powerful unit That's kind of hard to not go for, right? Because she's not gonna need killers. She might be easy to gear, and even if she isn't, for a veteran that might have all the evoker gear, she might be just an excellent unit that you can put in any team, right?
That is true, but she is locked to elements, meaning you cannot imbue her. So just like Oliveira is locked to elements, she cannot flex onto like a wind team because we know
Can,
from the
can,
preview.
but can evokers technically ever get imbued, or is like evoke damage just not imbuable to
Uh,
begin with?
no, based on the coding of the game, unless they did like some global exclusive changes to the actual game itself, which is unlikely, no, you cannot imbue evocation damage.
Right. One thing that's good about her is that she seems to be having 3 fields, one for each of the elements she supports, right? Which I guess is pretty important because evokers can't use amps, but they can use amp fields, right? That's a weird.
Well, no, you got it backwards. They can use amplifies. They cannot use amplify fields. But
Oh,
her
so her
field,
fields are not useful to her?
no. Her field is an imperil field. It lowers the enemy resistance.
Oh, I thought it was an amp. Oh, wow. Imperil fields are even better, especially in this day and age. We just fought through Rafflesia. Okay.
Yes, I have a strong suspicion that on Thursday, Rafflesia will go from one of the hardest trials in the game to, I'm not going to say a joke, but a whole lot easier with Tsukiko around.
Like, what if it's 100% Sinzar? What if it is 100%?
100% Imperil field, there's no way. There's no way. Like, best case scenario is 50 to match up with the JP fields, potentially lower, but because I don't think we have any 50 fields on global yet. That's kind of like future power creep,
Yeah.
so it might be lower, but if it's 50, that would be awesome.
But you know,
I
Sylvie was a thing, and she actually happened. So
That is true. I don't think it's going to be 100% in peril. That seems,
that would be
excessive.
broken. That would be fucking broken. But hey, again, like Alim are not shy of releasing broken units. They have released quite a couple of broken units lately, actually. Like we have the Chow, we have the Sylvie. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a bit worried. Uh, Okay, but at least she's an evoker, and she seemed also to be a debuffer in her shift. Do we know if she has any type of breaks or something?
There are none previewed. I would assume just because every single global exclusive in the past year has come with one, I would assume she's got a weapon in peril. So
Ah,
she's probably going to bleed the global exclusive rod in peril because of her STMR. So that's nice.
that's true. That's a very good point, and and that's a nice segue into the STMR because the STMR is really, really strong. So it's a non-elemental two-handed rod with 240 magic, which is really good.
Hmm. And it also gives evocation damage to everyone, not just her.
Oh, now that's really good.
Is,
Well, I
is, is
mean,
it
if
though?
we,
Is it
yeah,
though?
I was gonna say if we actually had competent evokers that want rods, then yeah. But like, you're not putting this on Yuna, and she's the only competent evoker we have right now.
Exactly. And coming in the future, the only other good one is Dagger, and she also uses spirit and stabs like Yuna. So yeah, like this
Okay,
is basically just for Tsukiko.
okay. Well, I like the fact that they are kind of branching out into other damage types. I really like that. It's like otherwise it can be boring. So I like that that she's an evoker. I like that the fact that well, she has to be element locked because she is an evoker, but I like the fact that she won't be, a must bring to trials always because elements are gonna stop her. But I am still a bit worried about the whole, evoker damage. I do feel it might be a bit dangerous for Cow because Cow has, yeah, it might be a bit too easy. Maybe it might be a huge power bump because even when you pull units like Wilk, like Chizuru, like Olive, you're making other units weaker because these top tier units will eat your best gear as you're gearing for Cow. Do you see where I'm going?
Yes, and we'll probably discuss this more when we get to the actual cow itself. But this cow is going to basically punish non-evokers.
Well, as far as we know, right? Unless there's more information that came out, because I think you're talking about the fact that it seems to be having a damage mitigation, right? That evokers
Yes,
pass through,
yes.
but we still don't know if we can remove that through AI, right?
Um, that's true. That's true.
Because I don't want to be too kind to Alem here, because like they could 100% fuck us over here. But I was kind of hoping maybe that this trial would also have a tricky mechanic to remove that mitigation, meaning that, Tsuki is very nice and she makes it easier and maybe faster, but kind of like, Kaito with his debuff removal, right? In that it's kind of just a speed up. It's a benefit. It's making it easier to do this boss rather than a must bring. Because
Oh,
I'm
for
feeling.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Like I seriously doubt Tsukiko will be literally required to get to cap it. She's just probably going to be like a whole lot easier. Kind of like like the previous Clash of Wills with Chow. Like Chow wasn't required, but depending on who you ask, they might say he was.
Yeah, of course. I mean, fuck Chow, he's required always. But the whole thing about it is that, if the mitigations are 50%, right, then she's a must bring, right? Like there's no, that's a no brainer. You have to bring her in order to do decent damage on this trial because every other unit is going to have their damage halved. If it's something like 10-20%, then that's fine. But personally, I would say, it might be 90% and a way to remove it through AI. But I don't know.
Makes sense. It might be.
Anyway, let's actually quickly just go over her card before we jump into the cow. So, because there's another card on this banner as well, right?
Yes. Before we do that, though, I want
Yep.
you to talk one more thing about Tsukiko herself.
Oh,
So go to the featured EX ability. How do you feel about that? Because that EX ability is very obviously an EX3 ability, and that is so much unit power locked behind EX3. Do you feel that is like a good trend for them to be going to global exclusives? Because this is 1,000 flat magic, 150 LB damage, meaning you need a minimum of 2 gear slots to make up for that, missing it at EX2. And then a 100% chain cap increase, which is another slot you have to use. This EX3 passive is worth 3 different gear slots on top of 1,000 magic. That is such a night and day difference between having it and not having it. The difference between an EX2 and an EX3 Tsukiko is going to be massive.
well, yes, depending on her gearing, right? Like if she has free slots or not. And evokers usually don't. That's the whole thing. Like evokers usually use all of their materia slots and sometimes don't even cap evoke damage. So I really hear what you're saying. I really hear and feel what you're saying, especially, but not so much based on the stats you mentioned, but especially what you mentioned about slot efficiency, right? Because, as you said, so we're going to assume that when you have EX3, this LB damage, she doesn't have this LB damage in her kit, right? So, as you said, this is going to be 2 materia slots that get freed up if if you have EX3. And I guess that's the huge power level increase, because if she's like other evokers, meaning she requires all 4 of her materia slots to be evoke damage things, then the level between an EX2 Tsuki, like, even ignoring the 1000 flat magic, is going to be huge, because those are going to be really powerful materia. So yes, absolutely. Although I'm gonna say, like, for the LB damage, I'm hoping, so she's a debuffer, so she can wear if she can wear heavy armor, she could use Emperor's chest at least. So
And
there's
there's also now the robe version of that on Lulu.
Oh, right. Yes, exactly. So if you have pulled a Lulu, you actually have some options here. So okay, I'm gonna say like this. Too early to say. I really need to see how she gears, but I absolutely see the risk here. I absolutely see the risk that an EX3 Tsuki might be so much more powerful than an EX2. This is almost like, premium unit power levels, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like what a premium unit gets on EX3 is not only their EX3 abilities, also their unique card, which usually is quite a big buff in itself to that unit.
Although the funny thing is, on Global, all the EX3 skills of premiums are actually EX2. So now Global is reversing that and putting, just like JP does, the best skills at EX3 on their global exclusives.
I'm just going to say, honestly, I think this is not needed. I think that there is enough reward for whales to chase EX3 already as is, on top of the fact that you also have cow being EX locked in a way. Like, for instance, this previous cow was quite easy. I capped it easily. I just couldn't use the last modifier on my team because I didn't have the EX levels. And that modifier had nothing to do with damage, so I would have capped it with that modifier. So that's, like, what I'm trying to say is this game is already heavily geared towards you needing the higher EX levels. So I don't understand the reasoning behind making EX levels, especially EX3, even more attractive.
Mhm. Exactly.
Unless, unless their data is saying that more and more players stay at EX2, but I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like if you're a whale, you're gonna have EX3, and that's still gonna happen.
The problem, the reason it irritates me, honestly, is VIP coins. Because VIP coins don't come out until after Clash closes, meaning I'm not even going to be able to use. I'll probably pull her to the point where I get her at EX3 after VIP coins. That's more economical.
Of course.
Economical pulling for EX3, but still. Um, but that means I won't even get to use her at her potential on her own Clash Worlds. And it just like feels bad.
I fully understand your reasoning, and to me, it's a slightly different reason where it's I don't want to feel like my unit is gimped if I only, and I made ear quotes, you just can't see them, if I only have EX2, right? That's like, I don't want to feel like my unit is shit just because I don't have EX3, because EX3 is far away for non-whales. Again, I definitely do not identify myself with a whale, but I do spend a lot of money in this game. And I don't want to be there feeling like, oh, I have this EX2 Suki, but the power level between my EX2 and EX3 will be 50% more damage. That's just going to be ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, Sinzar,
So,
did we lose you?
no, I'm here.
Ah,
Do you
yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you now. Sorry. So I don't know. I'm worried. I feel what you're saying, and let's see if this is a trend. Indeed,
All
a
right.
dangerous precedent. Yes, indeed. Well, again, it might, like, as I said, let's, don't bring out the pitchforks just yet. We do need to see how she gears and just how big of a thing this is. If it's just like, if you can get away with just like Lulu STMR or Emperor STMR and maybe Yuna STMR to cover the LB damage, then maybe it's not a huge problem anyway, right? Like, then gearing will be similar, and she'll be stronger as EX3, but it won't be 50% stronger. So let's see.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Anyway, let's move on to her card then, just quickly. It seems to be a very powerful card with, the standard that we expect for GLEX almost. It's a 125 stat base, magic, and then a 500 boost to FFBE units on level 10. But this one also has 50% LB damage and evocation damage. So it's going to obviously be really good for her.
Is it though? So then you go to the next card.
Right, the kind-hearted demon. So we have the demoness card, and now we have the slightly worse version of demoness, but probably better for Tsuki, I guess. Another 125 magic base card that also has 200 TDH on it, which makes it really, really good. And the big thing here, though, and the big difference maybe, is that on the max level, you're getting 500 flat magic, but also 50 evocation damage and 50 parameters of Esper's Evoked, which is the other stat you need for evokers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is potentially a very, very powerful card. Like you said, EX3 Tsuki might be much more powerful than EX2. I'm saying Tsuki without this card might suck ass. Because,
Oh
like,
yeah. It's definitely the same thing as like the Roberta banner, where you get like a perk for pulling during their week. Like if you off banner Roberta later, you're stuck with her card, which is a decent card, but it's not nearly as good as the one from her special banner. It's the same thing here. Like Tsukiko's card is obviously a decent card. It's actually a really good card. But for people that pull Tsukiko this week or next week, you're getting a better version of the card as opposed to someone that off banners Tsukiko 3 weeks from now.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, a lot better. So I've used a lot of evokers in the history of this game, so I know just how tricky gearing for evoke damage can be. Because for those of you that don't know, it's basically actually you have to gear for 300% LB. Well, actually, do we know if Tsuki is an LB damage dealer?
Well, based on her EX3 passive, like it seems obvious.
Oh, yeah, because she's getting. So, first of all, you have to gear for 300% LB, but then you also have two other stats you also need to gear 300%, which is Evo damage, and the other one, I just keep forgetting what they're called, but they are the two evoke stats, and they both go up to 300%. Um, and that's tricky because, like, there are no 100% to evoke damage materia at all. You have to kind of use a combination of various gear that have like a tiny bit on it, as well as some of these key STMRs. So getting 50 to both from this VC is a huge deal. It's a huge
Mm-hmm.
deal. So,
Definitely.
so I think that, like, so yeah, if we put it this way, EX3 Tsuki with Kind-Hearted Demon, which is the name of the new card, is going to be a lot stronger than EX2 Tsuki with her own card. And honestly, that's a bit scary, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So don't make sure you don't miss the card.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going for Tsuki, I mean, you obviously are gonna want this card, obviously. Um, Okay, well, I am honestly okay. Now I'm getting a bit worried. I am getting a bit worried that they're setting up these huge power spikes. Again, I don't think they're needed because there's a huge difference between a whale and non whale player in the amount of power level already. I'm not sure that needs to get bigger. I don't know how you feel about that.
um, for me, it just like I said, Gumi fixed one problem, which was premium passive locked to the X3. They fixed it, and then they're going and doing the exact same thing, and I don't like it. And the card on the banner is kind of the same thing. It's like you have to go all the way all in to get not just like a small power, but like a big power boost, and that's just
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
I mean, and I'm gonna argue here and say that this card is much more powerful comparatively than the Roberta example you pulled, because with the evoke stats on it, I'm feeling that this card could be incredibly powerful for Tsuki.
exactly.
And I see a lot of people in chat already, and I've seen people on Discord say this before as well, that you have Dazzling Demoness, you don't have to pull. Well, again, this has evoke stats on it. It could be potentially a really big deal for her. So
Yeah. So the comment about that. So the difference between that one is this: they both have 200 double hand. Demoness has chain cap up, and this one has 100 evocation stats. It's got 50 and 50.
yeah,
So yeah, this one is definitely better than Demoness. It might not be better enough to need to go for it, but it's definitely better than Demoness because the 100% chain cap of Demoness is worth one gear slot. The 50 and 50 evocation stats is worth 2 gear slots. So this is
yes,
worth an extra gear slot versus the Demoness card.
absolutely, absolutely. For Tsuki, I mean for Tsuki, obviously, but that's what we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about. Um, so yeah, this is a very powerful card, very powerful EX3 ability. Well, we're just assuming it's an EX3 ability. Like if it's EX2, then maybe it's not as big of an outrage because EX2 is a lot more approachable. But let's face it, this is an EX3 ability.
It seems that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Interesting. Interesting. Let's see if this is a dangerous precedent or if this is just an experiment. I've said this many times before, but one thing about Gumi is that they do experiment. They do try stuff out, and maybe they're just trying this out. So, one thing you can do as obviously a player of this game is, if it turns out that this is an EX3 ability, and if it turns out that Tsuki without her card and without EX3 is like half as good as a Tsuki on EX3 with her card, then what you can do is obviously vote with your wallet. Do not pull for this unit. Show Gumi that this is not a practice you think brings anything to the game. Because I personally think that making the gap between whales and non-whales even bigger is a bad move, because this game might be monetized or might be financed by whales, but whales wouldn't be playing it without the larger player base. So this is potentially dangerous, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but let's move on. Let's move on to some of the other exciting news this week. So first of all, obviously, we are getting a Clash of Wills event, a Kappa of unknown origin. Seems to be a really smug asshole with a knife. Like so, it's kind of like if you took a tonberry and kind of merged it with a turtle. That's that's basically a psychopath. I guess you would get this, right?
I was actually saying it reminds me of like a Koopa Troopa from Mario.
Actually, well, I mean, Koopas are, I guess, Kappas, really, right? Like that's their inspiration, so it definitely makes sense. Uh, it's a pretty cool design, though. It is a pretty cool design. I think the boss does look a bit menacing and cool. So what do
Mm-hmm.
we know? We know already a ton of stuff. Like for instance, we know the fact that it has a mitigation, and we know that the elements are fire, earth, and light.
Correct. Yep. with
Right.
Earth as the primary.
Earth is primary, meaning, you're obviously still bringing Sylvie. My post is still pinned in the Discord that we're going to be bringing Sylvie to cows for at least another 8 months. But yeah, we're bringing Sylvie, of course. And, well, Tsuki, if you have her, I guess. Are the other
Oh
two
yeah.
elements even like worth considering? Like, do you see a fire team ever being good?
Fire teams could potentially be good because you do have Leftia for the 100% fire amp and 45% AoE amp. So you could give that 100% to something like a big carry unit like Olive or Chizuru if you're not going for Tsukiko.
Yeah.
Um, and that could be a really good strategy. Also, you've got Lena the Evoker with a fire down field. So you could use that field effect. So yeah, I think fire could make a reasonable argument. As far as a dedicated light team, I don't really see it.
Yeah.
There's really no good light buffers. I know you've got Premium Thena and Aerith, but neither of those really do that much. And 45 light is not that great. Now that being said, it might be worth bringing Yuna just to stick her on a different team. That's because she is still very very strong with her crowns.
Right.
So I could definitely see Yuna coming in, but I just don't see like the whole team being built around the light element.
Well, I mean, if you're already pulling for Tsuki, you're obviously bringing Yuna because, again, Yuna has two AoE buffs that are going to buff Tsuki as well. Well, I'm
No,
assuming,
no,
although, do we.
no, they won't. They won't. They won't. People
Because
have
morale,
looked at.
right?
Yes, it is a morale scaling skill. It is. It is differently defined in the game's code.
Right.
Yuna and her STMR and all that won't work. Things like Sylvie's LB will not work. Things like the cool smile card will not work. None of this will work because morale scaling evocation damage is a new damage type, and
Ah,
these all of these, like in the coding of the game, they all specifically define the skills they work on, and this is not there because it doesn't exist currently.
right, right. So why is it that Tyvus works for basically everything? That has to be very loosely defined as just increasing LB modifier or something.
Yes, because that one is increases the LB type. It was explained by Sycidas, the head data mine guy,
Mm.
that he explained it. I forget the technical explanation, but Tyvus's XTMR works differently because that one does not specifically define the damage type. Whereas, well, this, you can blame the JP server for this. When they came out with Titus's XTMR, this is when it all started.
Mhm.
When they came, no, actually, it started with Warrior of Light. Warrior of Light started it. When they came out with him, they started hard defining the damage types. I guess because they figured Tyvus's STMR was too good, so they
Right.
had to limit. They had to limit it. And yeah, starting with the Warrior of Light, JP started to define the skills that it works on. And if you're not on that list, you just don't work.
Right. Okay. 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 Well, so that does. Okay. So my assumption was wrong. Then Yuna is definitely not going to improve the power of Tsuki, but as you said, she might just be a good unit in her own right, given that also she doesn't again require killers to be geared, so she might actually just be a strong addition to a team. Well, I guess it depends. Again, like if Tsuki now eats all of your gear, then maybe not. I can't wait to see Tsuki's best in slot. That's what I need to see. I need to see just what she actually needs to do her damage.
It'll be fun to see.
Yeah, because it's very varying between evokers, what they actually need to cap out. Anyway, is there anything new else about this boss? Like again, we mentioned the mitigation, and we still don't know if there's a way to remove that mitigation.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah.
something else I should mention is you'll notice the fourth point, counters if not dealt fire, earth, or light damage. Um, Now this has always worked this way. It's just no one really cares because no one uses evokers. But for those of people that don't realize, um, evocation damage does not count as elemental damage. So when it says counters if not dealt fire, earth, or light, if you're using all evokers, you will not seal the boss. You have to use a regular physical or magical attack to count as sealing. Now, this is just fine. All that really means is, stick Poppy's STMR on your breaker, handled.
Yeah.
But you just keep that in mind. You cannot seal with evocation damage. It's got to be a regular source of damage, either physical or magical. Evocation will not seal.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. That's a very good point. And it does seem to have the same thing as other cow bosses, where it does seem to indicate that it's going to get a lot harder below 50%. meaning if you're going with the 50% modifier, you're going to have to be struggling through a phase 2.
And this is actually different than usual. I'm kind of glad about this.
Okay.
Normally below 50, the boss doesn't specifically get harder. It just gets like bulkier because it gets like things like an unremovable defense buff and stuff like that, or okay, unremovable other than Kaito.
Yeah, exactly.
This time, it's using more attacks per turn in phase 2. That's interesting because that's like not something you can just like Kaito away. You got to actually deal with it. That sounds fun.
Yeah, well said, well said. So we still don't know. We do know that this boss uses all types of attacks. Like the description does say, they're going to use water, wind, and non-elemental, physical, and magical. And we also know that they're going to use magical attacks that ignore cover, and provoke effects. Might be hinting towards that we want to use a physical tank on this fight. I don't know though. I sure as fuck hope so, because I can't see another Chow clear. Like I don't have it in my. I can't. I will just die.
Well, hopefully, when they say that the attacks bypass cover, that means all of the magic attacks bypass cover, meaning Chow will not be worth bringing. And yes, because as much as everyone loves Chow, I am personally sick of Chow being in every single best clear ever in Clash of Wills. He's got to go.
Yeah. I honestly, I still think they need to do a game mechanical nerf to Chow's counter, just like set a max counter cap or something per turn that has nothing to do with Chow, but just like exists in the game or some shit, because it's just getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this could be a physical tank fight, which is interesting. I guess like our only physical tanks in Cow are what? Esther, Behemi, and Maeve? Do we have anyone
Uh,
else? Well, Noppy, I
well,
guess, but
well, I mean, if we're talking like actual morale units, sure, but physical tanks you can bring like anything. Runda, the new Jack, would be probably a good option because he has a decent support kit.
oh, true, true.
Um, or just no tank. Actually, a whole bunch of the fights that in the past have like quote unquote wanted a physical tank. The better answer has been just like Mirage.
Yeah, well, that again, that depends on the number of attacks, right? Especially if the number of attacks doubles or some shit when it falls below 50, then maybe not even Mirage is gonna save you. So it depends, I guess.
Could be. Also, don't forget Kresnik for 3 turns of imbue.
Ah, yes, Kresnik is definitely one of those must brings if you're gonna go that route, I guess. Although he's starting to become less and less useful as a unit, again, thanks to Chow, because like his niche of filling morale is like by a lot is dwarfed by the fact that Chow fills like 5 million morale per turn.
That is true, but if this Clash of Wills is anti-Chow or Chow doesn't work, then Kresnik becomes the new #1 morale filler.
And that's also negative, to be honest. Like I did not like that, because before Chow, Kresnik already was kind of, like a lot of fights were made easier by having Kresnik, for morale fill, that is. So we definitely need some alternatives. Why are they not throwing alternative? Why are they just giving us damage dealers? I mean, I love Tsuki. Her design is great, but she could have also been an alternative to Chow and or Kresnik.
She could be. Her base form is a buffer, so maybe that's like morale skills.
Yeah, she could like do insane damage as well as be Chow. So sure. I mean, she could. Like, I'm not saying she couldn't. Like Gumi is creating some broken ass units, so she could definitely follow that formula. All right. So aside from that, we're getting some upgrades to the Clash of Wills equipment, or some of the Clash of Wills equipment. I'm gonna say, they're actually getting buffs to their stats to be more relevant, as they put it. What do you think about
Yeah,
that, Cesar?
it's fine. It makes sense, I guess, because power creep is moving along. The JP gear is getting better and better, and they want to keep the Clash of Wills gear relevant. Like for example, we just had the not just, but recently had the Rus and Nelica STMRs, which are 150 attack power. Then we had Titus STMR, 140 plus a great effect. Stuff like that. Balthier's STMR is 120 with 50 LB damage. So the Clash of Wills, and actually the Clash of Wills helm was already falling behind because the both the Riser helm and the Ricard STMR were just better than the Clash of Wills helm.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
so it's nice that they're upgrading it to be like once again the literal best in slot for every scenario, which is nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a small boost. I'm gonna say, not sure this was super needed, because a lot of this gear players nowadays run with the pass or the static stat version of it, because we have so
Uh-huh.
many damage dealers that actually don't need chain cap. So, this wasn't a 90 attack magic item. This was a 90 attack magic item with a 250 attack on top of it flat. So there's
Yeah,
that.
makes sense.
But it's a very welcome addition. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I think this is great. This is going to make these items even more powerful and even more valuable. Uh, Although I feel like the rings really did not need a buff. Like, it's not like we
Well,
have a ton of accessories that
well,
are above 80 power level, right?
but they did exist. The new Ash's STMR was a 90 magic
Yeah,
ring,
but that's
so
like
it
the
wasn't.
only one. That's the only one higher than right? Like that's the only one higher than 80.
I think there's maybe some coming from JP. I'd have to check. I don't know, but yeah, but really the whole point of this is just to like, in my opinion, just to keep up with power creep.
Yeah. I mean, again, I am not complaining at all. I'm not complaining at all. I think this is a healthy move because it also shows Gumi's dedication to Cow and the dedication to Cow being relevant. So this means, Cow is going to be a game mode that's going to be the flagship of this game in GL. And this is a good sign for it. I also specifically like that the tanking items get a lot tankier as well.
Do they though? Not really. If you notice, the tank items actually did not change stats. Their stats stayed identically the same. The only thing it got
Well, they got more
was
HP, right?
it got 500 more HP. So sure, and my tank goes from 65,420 to 65,920. That's a huge
Okay,
difference.
sure. It did get 200 MP, I just saw. I wonder if this is better than the weird festival hat for
No,
Oliveira.
no. People have already said that. No, the festival hat is 300 flat plus
Ah,
20%. It
right,
is
right.
strictly better than this on Oliveira.
Ah, it is. Okay. All right. Well, again, welcome change. We're also getting a item world to go
Mm-hmm.
here, which is quite interesting because it seems like we're getting the first actually really decent item world weapon. I feel like I've said this before, but this time I also think it's true. We're getting a 189 magic two-handed non-elemental rod that also
It's
has some
good.
killers on it.
It is good, and it is very strong, and it is good for people that cannot beat Morgana. That being said, if you can beat Morgana, the rod from Clash of Wills is actually better. But yes, this is going to be brainlessly easy to get. So
Yep.
like the new player stuff I've been doing on my channel, the new player series is going to love this because I have not beaten Morgana yet on that account. So this is going to be very welcome for me.
Yep. And its unique upgrade in this item world is also really good. It's 50% magic and 50% TDH.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
So overall, this is going to be a very nice weapon for new players. So don't miss out on it. Unless you're like swimming in other rods. Technically, we only need one because usually you only bring one rod unit per team. Rod is not really one of those. I don't know why, but it's not really one of the most popular weapons. I guess that because the availability of Rod and Peril is difficult. Tsuki might change that though.
She probably will, considering the last like 7 global exclusives in a row have all imperiled their weapon type. So Suki seems to, I would assume, is going to follow suit
Yeah,
and
yeah.
do a rod imperil.
Hopefully, yes. All right, I think that's all the stuff this week, right?
That's all the news we are getting.
So should we talk about the news we're not getting?
Okay.
So yeah, I guess like everyone, including me, thought we were gonna get the Noppy upgrade and the Melia upgrade this week because it makes sense. It's cow, right?
Yes, they previewed them in the live stream with Tony and Justin. But they are not here yet. No, they did say in the live stream they're going to be here in September. They did not specify a date in the live stream, but everyone was pretty much assuming it meant during the global exclusive week because I mean that makes sense, but
I
apparently
mean,
it's
it's
not.
the well, it's not even the global exclusive week. It's the cow week, right? Like you're upgrading cow units. You're assuming these upgrades are coming when cow is being released, right? That just makes sense.
Especially since Noppy's intrinsic is Demon Fairy Killer, which is literally the cow boss.
Right. So, and I personally like Noppy. I think she is a fantastic unit. So I can't use Noppy until next week, I guess. Well, I don't even know if it's coming next week, honestly. Like, what if they're gonna fuck us over, Sinzar? What if it's like coming after Cow's closed? That would be
that would be
fucked up.
incredibly trollish. So I would assume it's going to come next week. But if they skipped it for 2 more weeks, oh, that's missed opportunity because the boss is weak to earth. That's Noppy's element. It's a demon fairy. That's Noppy's, or that's the killers that Noppy needs. Like this is the perfect opportunity to bring Noppy to the Clash of Wills,
Yeah.
assuming the intrinsic buffs her high enough.
Yeah,
Which
we still
is
don't know how
still
much. Like we know she gets 3k attack, but we don't know how much her modifiers get increased, which is really where a lot of the power is going to sit. So, like
yeah.
if her LB goes up to, well, actually she never did LB damage, right? She used her LB to unlock, I want to remember.
No, the LB does a mod boost for Koopa Barrage, and then Koopa Barrage is the primary damage skill after setting it up. Yeah, so
Right, right.
she's a
So that's the skill I'm assuming is then going to get buffed, unless like the LB is not changing to a morale base, so it's going to be Kupo Barrage, right?
correct, but based on the yeah, it said it's boosting the modifiers of skills. It didn't mention the LB at all.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, I mean, if she actually gets reasonable mod boosts here, it could be that she is one of the go-to units for this cow, right?
Maybe. Okay, so for people that have never used Napi, you may not realize this, but oh my god, for a Moogle decked out in plate mail armor, Napi is one of the squishiest units in the entire game. Her spirit, even if you door pot her at EX3, is absolute garbage tier, and there is no spirit on this intrinsic that is not going to save her. So if this boss, with his cover ignoring magical attacks that ignore provoke, shoot that little bitty Moogle, you're gonna have a dead Moogle.
Yeah. I don't know why, but like low spirit on GLEX cow units seems to be a thing. Like, Sky, Olive, Noppy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I have an EX3 Napi, and I door potted her, and I've used her in the past, and like, man, her stats are low, are so
I
low.
tried tanking with her once and it almost kind of worked.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, oh yeah, and Tidja just mentioned it in chat as well. So Olive is an SLB, and depending on how much damage we're going to be thrown here, Olive might be actually difficult to use in this cow.
That is incredibly true. And also, I will mention I did a test gearing for Olive. Uh, it is real hard to gear Olive for Demon Fairy. Like it is. I don't think I could even cap her. Honestly
Oh,
speaking, or
okay.
maybe if I didn't. Actually, I was giving the blue fiend a chess piece. It's probably as possible, but in any case, it's hard to gear her for Demon Fairy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, so and on top of that, her being squishy, it might actually just be difficult to bring her. Cheezer is probably a no-brainer because she's just so powerful. But yeah, let's see. I hope I get to bring Olive. I just EX3'd her, so I definitely want to bring her. I'm gonna do everything I can to use her. But let's see.
Oh, someone in the chat said the new vision card, the special vision card, has 100% killer for fairies, and yes, that actually would be a huge help. And with that new vision card, I probably could cap her now that I think about it. So yes,
Yeah,
actually,
but like that card is going on fucking Tsuki. Let's be real here.
that is probably likely.
I mean, you're not putting that on Olive. Come on, like it has 100% evoker stats. Like you're gonna be putting that on Tsuki. But I can't wait to see the AI. I want to see if this boss has permanent mitigation or if you can do stuff to it, like do some Kaido shenanigans to it, or whatever. Might work. Wait, actually, does Kaito reduce mitigations? He doesn't, right? He only
No,
reduces buffs.
stat buffs, just
Yeah,
stat
stat
buffs.
buffs. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. So Kaido is not going to work. So let's see. Let's see. This is going to be interesting. Like, I really hope it's not a permanent one, because if it's a permanent one, that's a very dangerous path to go, because then Tsuki is going to be a must bring.
Well, it depends because normally I would agree with you, but they literally just gave out a free EX2 Yuna who hits incredibly hard. So, assuming if it really is unremovable mitts that you have to use evocation to bypass, and Yuna is strong enough, I feel that's okay. Like, of course, your option at that point becomes either I pull Tsukiko or I crown Yuna, and that's fine in my opinion. I think
Well,
that's okay.
yeah. If that's the truth of it, then sure. Yes, absolutely. I just don't know. I mean, I guess it depends. I guess it's gonna depend. Who's Lightfield? Is that the new Yuna? Sorry, the new Fina?
Well, you can't use amplify fields on Yuna, but you could use imperil fields. Tsukiko does have the light support, but the old version is Nyx. But I mean, we're not bringing Nyx for an imperil field.
Yeah, probably. No, but I was thinking, if Yuna is your only option, right, and everything else is shit, then you might actually bring Nyx. Although Nyx is not NV, right? So no EX levels.
No, he has an NVA.
Oh, okay. Well, then you could bring him if you're just doing the one unit trick with Yuna, I guess. Because then the only thing she needs is a light imperil and an imperil field and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Also, she wants a better amp. Her own amp is only 30%, which is sad.
Yeah, exactly. So then you might be actually bringing the new Fina anyway, or Aerith, I guess.
I think Chow single
Fuck
target
you!
amps.
No, no more fucking Chow. Okay, like there are no more Chows. Jesus Christ! How is this unit the answer to like literally everything? I don't get it. All right, all right, all right. I'm gonna let my anger go and wait for the actual data mine to see how much of this is gonna be true or not. Uh, Thank you for chilling, Sinzar. This is an interesting week.
Sure thing.